Hello and welcome back to the Oh No 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 podcast. Rovers convincingly chucked any potential banana skin straight into the recycling as they cruised on to the fourth round of the Scottish Cup, following a 4-0 win over Linlithgow Rose. The result was our biggest win on the road since John McGlynn's second spell started away at Dumbarton back in 2018. My name's Robbie Weir, and joining me tonight to the run-up for tonight's cup draw. Firstly, got Scott Fleming. How are you doing, Scott?
Yeah, all good, mate. Obviously, happy with the result on Saturday, and hopefully get a decent enough draw tonight later on. Obviously, when we're recording, it's half-time in the Falkirk game, but yeah, a decent job wouldn't go amiss.
Also joined by Blair Hopcroft. How are you getting on, Blair?
I'm very well, mate. All the better for remembering that Dumbarton game. That was tremendous.
It was a brilliant day out.
It really was.
For a one-sided stand, that because I know that a lot have been made about Dumbarton that season as well, and then it just never came to fruition. But yeah, I think it was
an underrated away game. Not necessarily going to Dumbarton, that specific game, in terms of like away games for the Rovers, it's up there. It was a good day.
Lewis Vaughan and Reagan Henry in full flow for the first time, which was great.
Yeah, totally.
And then we've got Alan Douglas-Munn as well. How you doing, Alan?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yeah, other than the fact that I don't know if you saw earlier, Rovers tweeted who do you want in the cup draw thing, and it was one of those where you've got to press pause, and of course I got bloody Livingston.
Let's just pray.
No, do. I think we talk about it. We need to talk about it loads so that there's no chance of it happening.
If it does,
nothing we predict ever comes true, Robbie. Come on.
That's
very going to be Livingston.
There was a score prediction correct on Saturday.
Oh, that's true.
Aye.
That's true.
So just so long as I don't say it, then we're fine. No, because then I've slaughtered Dougie Emery so much on this podcast, and he's done us twice this season. So clearly, I don't have a clue what we're talking about. Right. Before we get on to the Linlithgow game, slight boardroom change as well today. News came through. Willie McGregor has joined the board. Quite a positive move there, do you think, Blair?
Yeah, I think it is. He's a walloper, but he's a good guy. I like Willie. He's a Rovers fan. Do you know what? And it's like, I don't know, like you get these guys that kind of come out the woodwork or whatever, local guys that want it and stuff. But Willie's been in and around that club for years and years. Like he's what's the phrase? Well Kent face.
Quite literally.
No, I think he'll
bricks.
I think he'll be a good addition. I really do. I think he'll do a good job, and I think he fits the mould of the current kind of board and the direction that they're kind of moving in and stuff. I think he fits pretty well.
Yeah, I noted in this sort of wording they're talking about sort of closer ties with the community. What did you make of that, Scott? Do you think, again, I think that this season you could argue has been if we're talking musical references, you could say it's the difficult second album for this board compared to the first one. A few things that have gone on in the background, so again, sort of prioritising the community links. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we were going on about last week saying that they might bring in somebody younger. I think Willie wouldn't mind saying that that's not quite where they went this time. But
he's younger than David Sinton.
But no, as Blair says, he's well known and he's well liked as well from a lot of folk in the town as well. So I've met him a good few times through my dad as well. And no, I think, to be honest, I'm not surprised they went down the more sort of local route as well, because they've obviously done it with Colin Smart as well, being with the Dean Park Hotel and stuff like that. So they're probably trying to just keep growing this community foundation and community base that they've been basically telling us since day one that that's what they want to do. As you say, it's been a bit rocky at times this season, both on and off the park. But I think, it's always going to take, when the team's doing well, everything's great on and off the park. When the team's not doing well, they're going to take stick, especially after what happened at the start of the season. But no, I think in terms of just Willie coming in, I think it's definitely a decent enough appointment. And I might be wrong, but I'm sure I heard something about in the 90s when Jimmy Nick was manager, he was actually on the board briefly for a spell. So I think he's done that sort of role before as well. So I don't think it's something that's totally unfamiliar for him.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a really astute addition to the board, just in the sense that he's got the ties with the club. I think that it is terrible news for anyone that's speculating that Raith Rovers Football Club was falling apart and that the directors, it was a sinking ship, etc. Because that's what was going to be the chatter from the outside, but it doesn't.
No, that was going to be my point as well. Actually, that it just kind of shows that it was part of a. It wasn't like that. There was guys abandoning us and we were being left. In the crap. It was the two that have gone were always likely to go. It was, by all accounts, they've been talking about it for some time, and they've taken the time to bring someone else in. So it shows you that it's not the crisis that Michael Stewart and others would like you to believe it is.
The only crisis is just how much airtime that Michael Stewart gets. He's just everywhere. I know Stephen Loffer's
every channel.
Stephen Loffer's got a running thread on Twitter about this. And,
I'm assuming he's on the BBC now, is he?
He probably will be. He'll probably be at Cape Park now. But yeah, fortunately,
just in terms of.
Go on.
No, sorry, I was just going to say, just in terms of Willie coming on board, I would imagine, and I don't know, but I would imagine he's had plenty of opportunities to get involved with the club at that kind of level over the last few years, particularly when things weren't great or whatever, and they're reaching out to local businesses. I know he's got a lounge at the ground, and he's been heavily involved in sponsoring kind of testimonials, and he was kind of instrumental in putting together Davos testimonial. So he's always been in and around the club. I think it's quite telling that now's the time he's on board. Maybe not. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I think it's quite positive. Like he's a genuine Rovers fan who he goes home and away and all that kind of stuff. And now's the time he wants to kind of get involved. I think that's got to be a positive.
Well, yeah, that's a really good point. I think that if you're an external investor and you look at the club and the work that's been done over the last year, you can see how much the current regime have put into it in terms of, sure, not everything's perfect. Like, I'm not claiming that everything is perfect, of course, but they've said that right from the start. I think that you look at the work that's been done in terms of the ground and the changes that have been made both externally and internally to it, the changes that have been applied to sort of certain within the club, things like, for instance, the Rory Club, the way that tickets are being sold, the way that just the general sort of little changes that have been made. There's every reason to sort of say to external investors that want to come in and sort of sell in the club to say, look, we are building something here. We're trying to take that next step to get up to the top flight, obviously, this season. It's not worked on the pitch, but we had to make a few changes, to say the least. There's still the opportunity there, because we can crack on and have a solid second half of the season. But yeah, we're building something for the future here. And that, I feel like that's got to be I think as supporters, it's a lot easier to lose sight of that compared to if you're maybe potentially an investor over the longer term. So yeah, let's turn our attention back to last Saturday though, with the Scottish Cup third round tie against Linlithgow. Right from the off, Alan, there was 5 changes that were made. So Pollock and Jamieson both dropped out. We'd sort of speculated pre-match about that as to whether their parent clubs would opt to keep them away. And then we also saw Stevenson, Byrne and Hamilton all drop out. So that meant that Lewis Gibson, Sam Stanton, Ewan Murray, Ross Matthews and Cody David all came in to the starting lineup. Just firstly, we'll start from the back. Were you quite surprised to see Lewis Stevenson drop to the bench for Liam Dick with Ewan Murray coming in? Just that change being a sort of tactical one rather than being enforced. What were your thoughts on
it? For me, it's one of those. As much as you need to treat every game with respect, I think Lewis, given the choice between playing against Linlithgow and playing against Falkirk next week, you would have Lewis Stevenson in for the Falkirk game. So if resting him for that game ensures that he's fit, barring any training ground incidents for next week, I have no issue with it. Liam Dick's a perfectly capable guy to come in and take a place. So I think that's a kind of sensible thing. And there's probably a school of thought that Hanlon and Murray's potentially our best centre-half pairing, and they've not played that much recently. So again, put them in, give them, another game together, get them up to speed for next week. I think obviously getting through in the cup was the most important thing, but working on a few things for Falkirk on Saturday is never a bad idea as well.
Yeah. It was probably one of the changes where the more I looked into it, the more I thought, oh, that's quite a bold move. Particularly, it's good because it gives us the solidity of having the two natural centre backs straight away. But then on top of that, just Liam Dick, I think that people probably do underrate him as a left back. I know that we've sort of praised him quite a lot for his role in terms of a back three on the left hand side, but as well as just as a full back. I mean, we managed to finish second in the championship with him last season, so it's not like he's a complete out of sorts left back there. Blue, just to come to yourself, in the middle of the park we saw both Sam Stanton return in, and as well Sean Byrne was replaced with Ross Matthews. Do you think that was a really good game for Ross Matthews to go out and sort of stake a claim in terms of a starting position, and as well just your thoughts on Sam Stanton coming straight back in?
In terms of Ross, I think most of us had him in from the start in the pre-match when we did our lineups, which evidently means nothing. But I think it made sense in the terms of, and I think from Liam Dick's point of view as well, it kind of made sense because it was never going to be a game where you're going to have fast, free-flowing football, on that kind of surface. It wasn't terrible, but at the same time, it was a wee bit heavy. So it was never going to be a game where you were going to be kind of knocking the ball about and fizzing it around and controlling it that way. And they were obviously, especially first 20 minutes, they were right in our faces. So Ross Matthews makes sense. That's his game. Do you know what I mean? He's physical and he loves a battle. I'll be honest, I was a wee bit apprehensive when I saw Sam Stanton in from the start because he is only just back, and like we spoke about, and I even said, like, I'd rather lose that game than lose Sam Stanton for the next 6 weeks. But I thought he was brilliant. He was just back to kind of what he does. And I mean, it's not a game that suits him, because he also, like, his strength, I think, other than his work rate and his effort, is actually his ability to pick a pass and beat a man and go past somebody. I thought it was really interesting. I mentioned in the group chat the other day, I finally got round to watching the Scott Brown interview, the sort of extended piece that he did with Davy Hancock, and he talked about Sam Stanton and how Bruni reckons he's the best player at the club. Like, in terms of ability, he's like, there's stuff he does in training that nobody can do. None of them. And I mean, the way he's talking, that includes the likes of Vonnie and stuff. So, yeah, I think it was great to see him back. It was good to see him come through it unscathed. I thought he was very good, actually, for what it's worth. And hopefully that's him beginning to kind of get back to the Sam Stanton of the first half of last season, because he was absolutely pivotal in us and everything that we did, as the stats have borne out.
Well, if we can get Sam Stanton back to how he was in derbies in particular, with that on the horizon, then that's something that we can all get behind. But yeah, thought over the piece, a really assured performance from him. But again, we'll talk about that after. And then the last two changes there, Scott, we saw Lewis Gibson come in. He gets his first start in a good wee while. It was noted by Davey on Rafe TV that he would have been playing against Accies, they were told, had that game gone ahead. And then as well, you've got Cody David coming in from the start. So were you quite surprised to see Cody David come in from the start, and just were you quite happy as well to see Lewis Gibson come in, given the sort of the hype train, shall we say, that's been building behind young Lewis for the last couple of months?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of David, I think for him, it was more for us as fans that if he wasn't going to start this game, you wondered if he was going to get a start at any point, because, I mean, this is the sort of game where you're going, well, it's no such thing as like a free hit, but it's like, well, we're not losing any league points today and we're not losing any league position, so why not try him today, see how he gets on? And it's a chance to get him more minutes than just 20 minutes off the bench as well. I mean, we got, 61 minutes into him. And Collins did say after the game as well, like, look, the guy's barely played any football and he's only made a few sub appearances, so he was quite pleased to get an hour out of him, he said. But I thought, yeah, for the first sort of 20 minutes, he didn't really do much, and he was kind of just, if anything, being a nuisance to the ref more than anything for fouling off the ball and stuff like that. But yeah, we can talk about that later on. But I think also with Gibson as well, yeah, we've been talking about for weeks that he's the sort of player that I think we've kind of been crying out for right from the start in games as well, where it's somebody that's just direct, loves to beat his man and just keep going at them like all game. And that, I mean, we've seen it. What was it? He came on for half an hour against Partick, and then he came on at half time the week after as well against Morton. And both games, like, instantly you could see he was making an impact. So I think I would like to see him get a run of games now, but it'll be interesting going forward, because now we've got the issue, but it's a good issue to have, of we've got all these wide players. Who are we going to play? So it's a good problem to have. But I'm glad it's Collins that's got to work it out rather than me. But I think, yeah, going forward, I would not be against Lewis Gibson continuing to start, because I thought he was really good on Saturday.
Yeah, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find an argument to sort of be saying, nah, we shouldn't be giving him another start, particularly with him getting on the score sheet. And yeah, Alan, if you just want to talk us through that first goal.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a lovely bit of direct football. I'm not one of these people who hate seeing a bit of long ball football. I think it's got a time and place. And if a guy can hit a 60-yard pass like Paul Hanlon hits to Lewis Gibson, and then for him to take it, the defender makes a mess of it. But for Gibson to take it first time like that, and it was a really nice hit. And I think it's one of those that the keeper getting a fairly weak hand to it makes it look like less of a decent shot. But it was a really good hit by Gibson. And it was one of those, it's just nice to see Rovers score a goal like that. We don't do it too often, back to front really quickly, just like 2 touches and it's in the net. It was good, and I genuinely would like to see a bit more of that at times.
Yeah, I think it's a fair summary of the goal there. I think Paul Hanlon's, so really you could see straight away just what he was doing as soon as he gets the ball up and he looks up, and then he can sort of see just, and I know that it had been spoken, I think it got mentioned that they'd sort of been training so that they changed the dimensions in training to sort of suit them to a smaller pitch. So a bit of sort of, whether that's a psychological effect or whether it's just had that impact and we've been able to utilise it. But yeah, really, really well done to find him, and he's done so well with the finish. So yeah, then for the rest of the first half, Blair, just talk us through that. Just the Rovers seemed to be in control and just but couldn't really manage to sort of capitalise just going forward to sort of extend their lead within the first half.
Yeah, I mean, it was comfortable, but I mean, I said before we came on, it was turgid. It was such a rubbish game. Like, and as much as I love a 4-0 victory, I honestly think the referee spoiled it, because it just felt like every 30 seconds he blew his whistle and we stopped, and then you'd play again for 30 seconds and then he blew his whistle and we stopped. And it just felt like that, particularly in the first half. And as Scott's mentioned, particularly with David up front, he just seemed to be fouling everybody every time he kind of got anywhere near it. And it never really got... It was, what's that thing about the referee got in the way of a good game of football breaking out? But it kind of did feel like that. It just kind of kept stopping. But like, you have to say it was a really kind of, I don't know if professional's the right word. It was maybe a wee bit like disheartening, but it was. I mean, it was a potential banana skin. You're going to a heavy wee pitch, and you're up against a team who are out to get you, kind of thing. And everybody wants the underdog to win in the Scottish Cup, right? I mean, I've got the East Kilbride game on the now, and I'm absolutely rooting for East Kilbride right now. Do you know what I mean? You do. Like it's the magic of the cup. That's what you love. So to go out and just deal with it, I think was really important. getting the chance to take the lead as early as we did, settled the nerves, because we spoke about it again pre-match, but the last couple of times we were there, we didn't take the lead very quick. And the longer it goes, the nervier it gets. Do you know what I mean? I remember that game 10 years ago. It was about 70 minutes, and it was a penalty before we actually broke the deadlock. So yeah, a pretty assured first half, I thought, without really being particularly good. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it was just one of the games. It was a bit of a tussle.
Yeah, I thought that the referee, Alistair Grieve, I looked at the stats before, and this was one of the more high-profile games that he's had in his career so far. I think he's had a few League Cup games. I was watching back the full game today on Rafe TV, and the Sam Stanton booking in particular, Davey and Jim were saying I think they make a really valid point in that there's a foul in the run-up to him then putting in for a tackle, which the referee books him for, which was arguably just as bad as the booking. I get that we win the game, and it's just as bad for both teams, as we'll talk about in the second half. And we'll come back to that point specifically for yourself, Blair.
I'd say, to be fair, and actually, just in case there is any Linlithgow fans, I think he was probably worse for Linlithgow. I think we did get the rub of the green 3 or 4 times, actually, in the game. It's one of the first times I remember being at a game and thinking, oh my God, we're the big club. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, we started getting some decisions and I'm thinking, what are you talking about, ref? Like, that's never... So I do think, as much as he was bad for both, I think we probably got the better end of it.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair summary to give on that one. Alan, I just want to come to you, just Cody David. Blair and Scott have touched on it a little bit already, but yeah, seemed to have a bit of a soft start first half. Just your thoughts just on that first half performance from him. It took him a wee while to find the sort of run in for a game where he played an hour.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say with him because we don't know what his fitness levels were before he came. We've obviously discussed in the past how little effort he puts in when he's warming up, but then that there's the Morton game, for example. He came on and he actually put himself about a bit and he looked decent. And I don't know that he did all that much on Saturday against a team 3 levels below us. I don't know that he did enough that Neil Collins is going to be banging on Andrew Barrowman's door saying, right, we need to give this guy a deal to the end of the season. I'm yet to be convinced. If he can't look the part in a game like that, then I don't know that he's the right guy for us. Maybe I'm being overly harsh.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think that he's definitely you can see the raw attributes that he's got. It's just about a lot of it's just about harnessing it and making sure that for him that he's involved to the best of his own abilities. And again, a lot of that is going to come down to him himself. Now, I don't feel like it's for a lack of effort when he's on the pitch. I can see maybe points that are made about, like, for instance, things like warm-ups and stuff like that. But ultimately, you're going to get some players that are going to be like that will just be put maybe a bit of minimal effort in if they're in that sort of frame of mind. Comes to a game and then they're like, right, it's go time. It's time for me to show people what I can do.
That'll be next week. Then give up.
well, it's an opportunity, and I think that he's in a difficult position because Rovers fans know what they're getting with Jack Hamilton, which creates a bit of difficulty there because Jack Hamilton's going to be a player that's going to get in the opposition faces. He's going to be a goal threat as well, as we saw, and he'll go through spells where you can see exactly the type of player that Dick Campbell had up at Arbroath that was scoring for fun. Whereas with Cody David, he's never really had that in his career, if we're being brutally honest.
So there should be a bit of aggression there as well, if you could just channel it better. Channel your aggression towards the guy who's got the ball. Or if you've got the ball, channel that aggression into getting past them and creating chances. Don't start fights with people when you're not anywhere near it.
To give him his due.
I know we're back to Thistle there, but it's just that's. Yeah.
We'll move into the second half now, because the start of the second half, I think you probably see a bit more of Cody David, the stuff that you want to see. So straight from the off, he has a sort of half chance where he shoots wide at the post, and then he does actually have a build-up. In the build-up for our next two goals, he does have a bit of an influence there. So for the second goal, just basically really quickly into the second half, 49 minutes in, Cody David, he finds Dylan Easton out wide. Blair, just give us your thoughts on that penalty decision.
Never a penalty in a month of Sundays. Not even close. Like, honestly, I was stood behind, we were behind the goals. I was that side, but I was probably on the edge of the 6-yard box in terms of from left to right. And not a single person around us shouted penalty. We all went, foul. And when he pointed to the spot, we all kind of, what? It was baffling. And then booking the boy for arguing, we were literally all of us around the back of the goals. Like, mate, he's got a point. It was not a penalty. But I mean, you take it. Like we've said already, like it's the rub of the green. Do you know what I mean? We've had the other side of it more than enough times this season. I'd rather it came in a more important game, if I'm not going to lie. But yeah, not a penalty. It just wasn't. It was a foul, but it was not a penalty.
Well, if he fancies getting along to referee the derby in a few weeks, as I say, and he does that in our favour,
worries
then Scott, third goal now. Dylan Easton gets his second of the game. Just starts again. Cody David's the ball starts with Dylan Easton on the halfway line, feeds Cody David through, takes it out wide. Do you think that's probably the first time in his career that Dylan Easton scored a goal that's been a tap-in?
Every chance, to be fair. Obviously, I wouldn't know going back to his Kelty and Forfar days if he scored any tap-ins. But in terms of for us, I can't remember other than I think the only sort of simple goals I've seen him score is penalties. Like that, everything else has just kind of been a screamer, or he's beaten 3-4 guys to go and then stick the ball in the back of the net or whatever. So, no, I think he seems to be somebody this year that has kind of taken on the role of, right, well, I need to be the guy that gets the sort of game by the scruff of the neck and really try and drag the team forward. Because, I mean, without Stanton, without Brown, especially at the start of the season, you were like, well, somebody's got to now take on that role that basically Stanton did last season of, well, think of all the games that Stanton either got an assist or a goal in a 1-goal win at the start of the last season. It was probably most of our wins that it was Stanton was getting the assist or the goal. So I think this year we're seeing it with Easton that, especially because they two have been missing a lot of the season, that he's the guy that's kind of stood up most. Hamilton's obviously chipped in with a few goals as well, but I think Easton's been the one that's stood out the most. But in terms of his goal there, I think I said in the group chat as well, after the goal went in, the amount of times I was shouting at David for at least getting the ball across was unbelievable. I was like, how many times is this guy going to turn before he even does anything with this ball? And then eventually, I mean, it gets a bit of deflection to go over the defence and then obviously to Easton. But at first, from the Rafe TV cameras, I actually thought it was David's goal. I thought it hit the post and went in. And it wasn't until the replay of it that I'd noticed that Easton had actually nodded it in. Because I seen him going wheeling off and it wasn't even your goal. But obviously, it was hard to tell for the camera angle. But no, I thought he was worth his 2 goals. I know there were 2 fairly simple goals and he didn't have to do much of them, but I still thought in the second half, I thought he was sort of at his usual tempo and at the game that you want him to play. He was beating players, he was dragging players out of position and sort of creating openings for other players to, especially later in the game. You seen him, and you still seen him actually in the 80th, 85th minute. I'm trying to remember who it might have been just before Gibson went off. Gibson took a poor corner and he went mental at him. I was like, we're like 3-4 up. What are you going mental at him for? But I suppose that's just the standards of trying to say, look, didn't slack off just because we're 3-4 up. You've got to keep going, but that's the
wasn't
sort of
actually a
stuff you
corner.
got to see.
Sorry, just really quickly, it wasn't actually a corner, and I still don't know why he went mental at him. So he gave the ball away. Easton gave the ball away, and the ball then kind of comes over and ends up going out for a goal kick. And he's screaming at him that he should have been in that corner. I'm like, he was about 10 yards away from it. He was nowhere near it. It was bizarre.
Yeah, it's looking at the stats for Dylan Easton this season. Again, this is transfermarkt.co.uk, so it might not be completely accurate, but it's shown that he's got 19 games, 7 goals, which is a really, really solid return. So he's obviously been a key player for us this season, and I think it's shown the value that we've had. Yeah, of course, penalties have had an influence, but at the same time, you need your players to step up, and you'll take them when they come along. I think that was our 5th penalty this season. We were saying in the group chat, which feels like quite a high number, and yet, you, as you rightfully say, Blair, you've got to take these opportunities when they come along.
And I think am I right in saying he's won 3 of them and Gibson's won the other 2? Because Gibson was Partick.
That sounds about right.
Every chance you could be right.
And then it was Falkirk, and then Saturday, and there was another one Easton got clipped as well. I'm sure Easton's won the other 3.
There was one very like the Falkirk one, wasn't there?
It was a week or 2 after. Queen's Park, maybe.
It was Jack Hamilton scored it.
Yeah, that's right.
Could be almost on to double figures if we've been given the penalties that we should have had earlier on this season.
I went and checked it out because I think it was Carol that brought up saying we're getting a lot of penalties, but when you think about it, we're getting close to halfway through the season sort of stage now, and we got 9 in the whole of last season. We're only kind of halfway to that, so it's not like we're getting loads more. I think we're just getting more in the first half of the season than we did last year. I think at the end of last season we got a few in games like the 5-0 Rove game. We got at least one. We might even got a second one in that game. But there was also games sort of near the end of the season that we were getting 1 or 2, and that's when we actually missed a couple. But I think it's just because we've had a few right at the start, it's probably just in folks' heads that we've had loads. But when you look at it statistically, we've not actually had that many more.
Probably the fact that there's been
5 weeks.
So
it was the only way we scored, wasn't it?
Games that we've won 1-0 with a penalty, when that was the only way we were winning, that probably gives it more attention as well.
Yeah, I think as well, it's probably, it's a good indicator that, I've been critical at times about us playing maybe a bit of a tepid style of football at points where where it's been a case where maybe when we have scored a lot of goals, the opposition have scored a lot of goals as well, and that we've maybe not created as many chances. But that's a good indicator that we're getting into the right areas and that we're getting the job.
But I think every one of them have been fair player, just getting his head down and running past a defender and being taken down. And, guys like Easton and Gibson and Pollock, that's what they're going to do. And they will win penalties because a lot of defenders at our level are crap and will miss time to tackle.
Well, Gibson's one against Partick's the only one that I can think being the exception of the rule against that.
Right,
and that's because Wasiri Williams is an absolute jobber, and he's now been released by Partick. So,
and the Thistle fan on the Scottish Football Forums podcast still says it was a penalty that was never a penalty. It's like, really? He volleyed him, man. You can't do that.
Would vehemently disagree with that. Very clear penalty. Also very intelligent by Lewis Gibson to win it, to be honest, as well. Letting it roll across his body. Anyway, the substitutions start on the 60th minute. Cody David comes off for Jack Hamilton even, and then we've got Ross Matthews coming off to be replaced by Kai Montague. Montague has a really decent opportunity in the second half, which just went wide of the post. So, Alan, what were your thoughts on just Kai Montague's performance in general?
He plays in a way that makes you forget how young he is, because he's got no fear. He's always wanting the ball. He doesn't hide. If he loses it, he'll try and win it back. He's just he's bags of enthusiasm. You could tell there's a confidence in there as well, and definitely some talent. Like, you know, there's some potential there for him to be a really decent player for us going forward. To the extent I would not object to him getting some minutes in the league going forward. But ideally it would be sitting there, you know, cruising at 3-4-0 up, and we can bring him on for 20 minutes. But that's not the Rovers' way. But, you know, there's definitely, I don't think it's a guy that, you know, if that's the only option off the bench and someone goes injured, Collins doesn't need to change the formation to avoid bringing him on. It looks like you can trust him to come on and do a job.
Yeah, he's. I think that he's not done himself any harm with Saturday's performance. He just looked really, really assured on the ball. He was comfortable just taking it on, and I know that's the level that he would have been playing against last season. So it's really the ideal opportunity to give him minutes. But yeah, I think that he can definitely take the next step into to be playing against championship teams. I can understand why Neil Collins has maybe got a bit of hesitation initially, given that the games are so close. But with a player like that, we've just spent plenty of time looking at the 1994 League Cup final where Jimmy Nicholl chucked in the likes of the youngsters and right into the final, admittedly with a lot more experience than maybe Kai Montague's had. But look, he's going to need the game time at some point because he looks a talent and he's got the opportunities there for him. So, yeah. Then on the 79th minute, we have a triple sub. So Connolly comes on for Dylan Easton, Sean Byrne comes on to replace Sam Stanton, and Josh Mullen replaces Lewis Gibson. And then, Blair, if you just want to talk us through the final goal, just in the remainder of the match.
Yeah, so I think Collins touched on in his interview. It kind of came from a bit of pressure from us shutting them down across the back line, and I really felt for the left back, I have to say, because I mean we touched on it in the first goal that he kind of made a mess of it. And again, Collins mentioned it as well. It was a wee bit windier than I think folk gave it credit for. And when Hanlon played that first ball, it did kind of hold up in the wind a wee bit, and he got caught underneath it, and then obviously the score. But the second, or the fourth goal, sorry, but the second mistake from him, his centre half basically rifles it at his face. He's got absolutely no chance. He does well to actually get a touch, but his touch is so heavy that it kind of knocks him backwards. And then Mullen's away. And actually, I thought a really good ball from Mullen to get it across, because it wasn't the option I thought he was going to go with. I can't remember who was in. There was somebody coming in right on the kind of edge of the box. It might have even been Montague, but he plays it across the front of him and into Hamilton's feet, and Hamilton just kind of tucks it away. It was really good, really good. And like you say, Montague was great when he came on. Really, really positive. And the manager clearly sees something in him as well. You know, because he's had him in the squad when he's not had Aidan Connolly and others in the squad. He's kept him in. He played for a good while. He played in the Ross Matthews testimonial against Hearts. I thought he looked really good that night as well. So yeah, a bit of a talent coming through. But it was a pretty comfortable second half. I think very different from the first half in the sense that we looked far better. Actually, we looked far better with the ball, and we moved the ball a lot more. And actually, Hamilton probably should have had another one, and Montague was unlucky not to get one. So it was better.
Scott, quite happy to see Jack Hamilton on the score sheet. I know that you mentioned that you'd hope to see him potentially get back on the goal trail.
Absolutely. I think it was as I say, I was more for obviously wanting him to start, because I was like, well, it'd be good obviously to get him more than the one, but even still to come on for whatever he did, 15 minutes or so, and still get a goal, I think was still good. But I think going forward, he is. I mean, we've seen it last season. I think it was sort of end of January. It was about the sort of fourth round of the Scottish Cup time when we went to Livy, and he scored. He went on a wee run of scoring like 4 or 5 games in a row, and you thought, right, here we go. This is the sort of guy that we thought we were getting. And then I think he picked up an injury again, and it kind of knocked him off a bit. But if we can get him on a little bit of a run again, just get his confidence up. I mean, we all know what he can do in terms of his link-up play. He's good in the air. He can cause hassle for any centre-half in the league as well. But I think a lot of folk just have been kind of criticising him for being not clinical enough. And I think he would say himself he's not been clinical enough. He's missed a lot of chances. But at the end of the day, you just want him to be there, to be getting chances, because you know then he's doing something right, and so is the team to be getting him the chances as well. So if we can continue that, then great. As I say, going forward, I just hope that he can get this run of games, because I do think that he's been picking up some niggly injuries like a lot of players though. So I think if he can stay fit, then I would just keep playing him. I know that David's got to try and probably prove himself to try and get into the team, but also to get himself a longer contract if that's what he wants as well. But I think, to be honest, Jack Hamilton's our number 9 right now, especially until Louis Vaughan's back. So I would just be going with Jack going forward.
Yeah, I think that, as you say, great to see him back among the goals. I felt that when we get the ball into those positions, Hamilton's one thing that you can't say about Jack Hamilton is proven if he can be a 6-yard box striker, then he's absolutely lethal. I mean, how often have we seen him do that? We've seen it even this season. We saw it in the League Cup against Stranraer. We've seen it with a few of our goals. Even looking back to last season, there was a few against the likes of Arbroath, Dunfermline, I believe, as well, in the Cup, where he got that final touch. If he can get himself into those positions, you know that he's going to get the goals. He's got the attributes there, and he's got just the ability to do it. I feel like, again, I can understand why people are critical if it's maybe sort of being more clinical with things like maybe chances where he's got a bit more time to maybe think about things. But again, that'll come with time, and goals will help with his confidence. So yeah, let's see how it goes. Do things a bit differently just at the moment now, because we've got the Scottish Cup Scottish Cup draw coming up. We will try and watch that live if we can. I'm just going to go through the full squad, just with each section, defence, midfield, and then attack, and just have a bit of a chat about their performances on Saturday and just how we feel things are going in general. So, Alan, just to start with you, just in terms of the defence for Saturday, obviously did their job, kept a clean sheet. But as well, I want to focus specifically on Frankie Dabo. Now, Frankie Dabo obviously played in the Championship and had that reputation being the player that went to the playoffs, went to Wembley with Coventry, was the penalty kick taker, one kick away from the Premier League, etc. And he's came and he's playing against Linlithgow and he's doing it with a smile on his face, particularly after that torrid time that he had with Troy Deeney as manager at Forest Green. How refreshing is that to see? Just him playing with a smile on his face, and you can see him having a bit of a laugh during the game and after the game.
Yeah, you know what? He just seems like a genuinely really nice guy. You see him on the pitch, and he's like you say, he's always smiling. He's always, you'll see him having a laugh with the players when he's coming off. Whenever he's chatting to Davey, he just comes across as a really nice, likeable guy. And you know what? It gives off the impression that he's actually enjoying being a footballer again. Because, he's had a fairly rough time. Let's face it, Troy, to use an insult already used earlier in the episode, Troy Deeney's a complete walloper. And, Frankie, that was clearly not enjoyed that.
I believe that Blair was using that in the most positive term. I feel like Troy Deeney's a negative walloper.
But that's fine. I never said complete and utter walloper. That's okay.
Justifies it.
You used it in the sense that you would call your mate it, whereas I'm
exactly
saying that Troy Deeney's a total knob. And
yes.
So it couldn't have been much fun for Frankie, but he seems to be rediscovering a bit of a love for the game. And a happy Frankie Dabo will make me quite happy, I think. He's he's not a world beater. We've seen times, where I think some people can get carried away a little bit sometimes just because of the level he's played at and the level he very, very nearly played at with Coventry. He's going to have his moments in games, but he, in my opinion, from what I've seen, is a very, very decent Scottish Championship right back and potentially a very decent Scottish Premiership level right back. He's a guy that if we could get him signed up and if we did somehow manage to get back into the playoff mix and get up, we're not needing to replace him. You're no looking thinking, right, there's someone we need to strengthen in that area of the pitch. I think he's someone who's got his ceiling would allow him to go up a level and still look good. And I'm fairly hopeful that that's going to happen. You know, like he could easily go and jump and play somewhere else and it to go completely wrong for him again. So he's got to be careful because he's not that young either. I mean, compared to me, he is, but for a footballer, he's not. So, like, you know, he doesn't want to rush into another move unless he's really sure. And if he's happy enough now, then, you know, I think it'd be obviously I'm going to say this, but I think it'd be a good move for him to sign on and stay longer.
Yeah, it's one thing that was very noticeable from the Rafe TV commentary is that Davey and Jim on the comms there, they're very excitable for when he's eventually going to be taking a free kick because the build up for this is palpable. So yeah, but I think everyone's really just looking forward to him having a crack one day and just seeing
Fairland game, top corner.
I mean, could happen next weekend. You never know. Falkirk.
There's a wee bit of me wonders if it's all bluff. You know, he stands at that free kick and he does that. They almost, you know, the Cristiano Ronaldo kind of pose. He's posed and he's ready, and I'm thinking the keeper's going to be thinking, "Oh my God, what's coming?" I think it would be hilarious if it turned out he'd never actually taken a free kick in his path.
I'm going to go out and say he probably hasn't. Genuinely think probably. That he probably hasn't. And to be fair, like Dylan Easton's scored one recently, and I mean he takes most of the set pieces as well. So I don't think it's really too surprising for a goalie to see Dylan Easton's going to be. I think surely the keeper's got to be thinking it is going to be Dylan that's taking it, but I've got to be ready just in case.
Yeah, there was one on Saturday. I think it was just too close.
I don't even recall him having a shot. The only evidence I could think of that he would actually be able to hit the ball really hard is that mental crossfield pass he did on his debut away to Morton when he just did, it was like, holy, everyone's just sitting going, oh, aye, this is going to be interesting.
I take it that Eagle goal is just knocked Robbie's camera out.
Well, my camera's gone. I'm going to try and rejoin the now. So just keep chatting away, and I will be back in a moment.
I was going to say, because he's still there.
I'm still here, but
I could hear it rustling about. But Jesus Christ, it's 3-1.
Is it? It's not yet. I'm watching it on iPlayer.
Didn't they ken that are you an iPlayer?
I'm an iPlayer, aye.
All right, well.
Callum Morrison.
Can't be long ago, is there?
Nah.
4 minutes.
I don't think anyone was really expecting
that was long lived anyway. For fucking what? Not even a minute.
The keeper had just made a couple of pretty good saves. The Falkirk keeper had a couple of decent saves, and then they scored.
Right, that's me back. So technical difficulties. You know what? We'll just leave that in for the laugh. We'll just see how it goes. Anyway,
you're all right. We didn't call you any names.
Feel free to call me a walloper if you want. I'm not going to take any offence to it. I'm fully aware that I'm one. I'm going to guess that Falkirk just scored as well. So based on that group chat,
isn't that what somebody in the comments called us once? Or tried to call us a bunch of wallopers, but just kind of completely misspelled it.
That was a Falkirk fan, was it not?
Wallopers or something he called us, wasn't it?
Who knows?
Oh yeah, wallpapers.
Right. Anyway, back to Rovers related matters. Just to move on now to the midfield. Just Scott, just your thoughts in particular. I just want to sort of see your thoughts in terms of the performance of sort of the likes of Scott Brown and Sam Stanton, just and how important they've been now that we've got them back in the team. I know that we've spoken quite at length about them, and as well, just Easton and Montague. Your thoughts on them as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, Brown and Stanton are easily, maybe apart from Lewis Vaughan, my favourite players in the team, like by quite a distance. And I've kind of been singing their praises for a long time now, basically since we started this podcast last year. But I think we just seen how quickly at the start of the season that we were missing these two, especially in the midfield. Like, Burns a very good player, but he's not this sort of all action sort of player. He's a guy that sits in front of the back four, controls a game, and sort of just keys the ball to sort of the more flair and attacking players to go and do their thing. Whereas like Scott Brown is your all action, box to box. He epitomises the captain, is what he does. So like I think it's just that role suits him perfectly, and the fact he's got an even sort of maybe slight less all action. Sam Stanton ends up being a mix of somebody like an Easton and a Brown, where he's kind of box to box and has a little bit of sort of skill about him as well. But yeah, in terms of they two, I think we just know how much I miss there when they're not there. We obviously, the guys have spoke about Montague earlier on. I actually thought he just looked so comfortable when he came on. I know that he's played at that sort of level before against the likes of Linlithgow, so maybe like he kind of knew what to expect for them. But at the same time, I thought he just looked like a guy he didn't look like a guy that's not played a lot of minutes this season, put it that way. He suited that role, and Stanton went back briefly before he came off to allow Montague to go into that attacking role. And what I like about him, he's no fear to getting stuck in. Like he wires right in, as well as being a sort of really skillful, very technical player as well. So I think for, what is he, 18, 19, whatever he is, I think we've got a pretty good young player on our hands, and I think we've got him maybe only for another year as it stands. I'd like to hope that if it keeps going and he gets a few more minutes and stuff, that maybe we can offer him an extended contract, and then see if we can try and get him sort of blooded into the team a bit more often between now and the end of the season.
I know I'd spoken about a bit before about this, but I did wonder about whether our strategy is going to be sort of try to bring in these younger players that maybe came through other academies rather than having our own academy, and maybe spend a bit of money to actually get them through. Montague's really, really a prospect. I know that he gets absolutely slaughtered, but Simon Ferry speaks very, very highly of him. But Simon Ferry is actually a good coach. I know that people obviously go with open goal stick, but see when you actually hear people within the game talking about Simon Ferry, like they do, he's really rated in terms of his coaching ability and what he actually does. So yeah.
Scott Brown was waxing lyrical a bit, man. Just that interview I was watching, I just watched it on Sunday morning, but he was waxing lyrical about his time at Peterhead, and when he was at Peterhead, the Glasgow boys, as he put it, they all trained, and Simon Ferry that took the training, and he was speaking really highly of him.
No, everything I've heard about him, just in terms of the way that he sort of, again, I think he fits well into the sort of setup that they've got at East Kilbride, because he'll get a degree of autonomy there. So yeah, keen to see how his sort of career moves forward. Obviously moving ahead, but then just with Montague, as you say, just a signing. I think that fans looking down the line, we've got every reason to be enthusiastic about going forward. No reason why he can't cement a place and sort of kick on and stake a claim, really. And it's a tough ask, because you look against who he's up against: Dylan Easton and Sam Stanton, two of the best attacking minded players in the league. Scott Brown, Sean Byrne, Ross Matthews, all so much experience in terms of the heart of midfield, but he's learning off them, so he's clearly doing something right, and they'll only be encouraging them as well. So Blair, just to come lastly in terms of sort of the attack, I'm going to include Lewis Gibson in the attack here. So obviously he's not done any harm for the hype train. Just your thoughts on his performance, and just do you think there's now going forward, obviously we've got the Cody David situation in terms of first half he maybe didn't hit the heights that we hoped, but then second half he comes on and looks quite impressive, and then Jack Hamilton getting a goal as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've already kind of mentioned Lewis Gibson. I think he was pretty good, to be fair, and I think he's done everything he can in terms of every opportunity he's been given. He's kind of taken it. I don't really remember him, stinking the place up or having a poor game or anything at all like that. So, and I think he's got to be pleased to get his goal and to take it as well as he did. I've said a few times though, I do think we need to remember he's young, and. Do you know what I mean? It's as much as I want to see him getting a run in the team as well. Like, again, I think that Neil Collins is going to have to manage that as well. Like, do you know what I mean? To no burn him out and to get the best out of him. You also didn't want to kind of hang him out to dry a wee bit if you know what I mean. If it's getting tougher or whatever, you do kind of need to protect the younger boys a little bit sometimes. But again, just to go back to that interview with Scott Brown, it's another player he was talking really highly about. Was Lewis Gibson, because I'd forgotten he played with his dad at Peterhead. But he was talking about his attributes and how much the squad think of him and how much the manager thinks of him. Because I think that's something that, as a fan, I think a lot of us have questioned. Why is he not getting a game? Does Collins just no fancy him or what? But certainly, according to Bruni anyway, he seems to really rate him. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of progresses as the season goes on and how we kind of keep pushing on with him and the likes of Montague chipping away at the edge to get on.
Even seen a return for Aidan Conway on Saturday, because I know that there's been a lot of speculation about that.
Yeah, totally. It was good to see him
about that, as to whether it's clauses and things like that in contracts, whether that's maybe having an impact.
It's not going away though, because the clause rumour that I'd heard was based on league games, so I don't know if this feeds into that or doesn't. I really don't know.
We're fans.
I've heard he's fallen out with them.
We're not there to know.
I've heard so many stories.
You're not entitled to know a player's contract, so just
no idea.
We'll see what happens.
Nah, no idea.
In terms of Gibson, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Pollock, because kind of hearing like listening to like the Terrace podcast and stuff like that, you hear kind of Craig Fowler going on about Hearts, and one of their biggest weaknesses is they've got no kind of direct pace in the kind of wide forward areas. And there was Hearts fans who weren't happy seeing Pollock going out on loan anyway. So you do wonder if there is a wee chance he might get recalled in January, and obviously being asked not to play him in the Cup, which you've got to assume is what happened, kind of lends itself to that a wee bit. So, I mean, obviously if he was to go back, Gibson kind of absolutely becomes almost your first choice in that kind of that position. Really.
It's us for Josh Mullen as well in there too. So yeah, I thought that the Lewis Jamieson one was quite interesting as well, because again, I know that St Mirren, they seem to be losing players to legal challenges every other week, as Leslie delights in reminding us. But yeah, just very very peculiar given the fact that he is on a sort of season-long loan. So you would have thought that.
See, I was going to say I don't read too much into this, because it's always the same. If you've got a cup game pre-January, why would you let them play for another club? Like if Lewis Jamieson or Finlay Pollock are with us after the January transfer window, they can't go back anyway. They're with us to the end of the season. So until that point, there is a chance that they'll get recalled, because you never know what's going to happen. So unless you've got a player, the only exceptions that I can ever remember are when you get a young boy from like Rangers or Celtic, like Regan Henry when he came from Celtic, for example. He's never going to play for Celtic in the Scottish Cup. Do you know what I mean? So they'll let him kind of come and play and play on loan. But I remember Dario Zanata going back, and do you know what I mean? Loads of young players at clubs who get taken back or are not allowed to play in the Scottish Cup. It's pretty standard, I think.
I might be talking nonsense here, but I'm pretty sure they changed the rules based on the Grant Anderson backwards header game, because Callum Booth came to us on loan, and Hibs didn't put in a clause that he couldn't play against the parent club. So basically, he ends up playing in that game. He got a lighter chucked at his head by one of the fans on the other side. It was absolute chaos. But I'm sure I've mentioned this before. One of my all-time favourite football stadium moments is on the right-hand side of the away end at Hibs. You've got sort of that sort of section. It's now, I think it used to have ultras in it for them. And they're going through a really poor period, and you've got their home fans at that end all with a few minutes left. They're all, get up the pitch, kick it long. They hoof it up long, and then you hear the boos off the other end of, get on the deck, which is sums up football fans tatty. So the Scottish Cup draw is about to start very shortly. I'm just going to see if I can find a place on this online and just see if...
I just noticed we're ball number 27 and ball number 11 is Dundee United. What's the chances?
What's Livy?
Depressing. That's what Livy
I never
is.
saw, actually.
So, we will have a look.
To be fair,
I'm
I'm
disappointed
just,
at the
I'm
lack
just
of
hoping
flair
that
here.
we are... I would rather hear us first in a draw, because then you know you're at home and you know that you've got a chance.
Airdrie.
And you know you're not going away to Livy.
Aye, well, could be at home to Livy.
Well, we won't be playing Airdrie because they're away to Dumbarton.
And
That's a
Cove have
night.
got forfeit.
We're already running out of lower league teams here.
For Dumbarton, that's a bit of a signal. You'd kind of want them to get a money spinner, but then they've got a chance to
Dundee
beat them.
I think it's a good opportunity. Dundee Derby is an interesting one.
Dundee Derby.
There's one of the
That is
telly games,
interesting.
because it'll be up to 4 games on the telly.
Dunfermline.
I tell you who I didn't want is Ross County.
32, which is not us.
Stenhousemuir.
But I fancy Dumbarton to make a fist of that against Airdrie.
Aye. Well, they're playing well just now.
To be fair,
Falkirk.
I never saw anything
Oh,
for the...
Falkirk away.
Falkirk away.
Goodness sake.
Ian
That's who
Latto
we've
just
got,
straight into the group
Falkirk
chat.
away.
Oh, fuck off.
Honestly, can we...
Oh my word.
What was everybody saying? Just didn't draw a championship
side that we could have drawn as well.
I mean, last time we played there in the Scottish Cup, we won. But,
So all three
Falkirk away.
cups, we've basically we've had teams in our own league, pretty much.
we had Ayr in the
Obviously, League
Challenge
Cup groups
Cup.
we get knocked out, but Hamilton,
Hamilton,
and now it's Falkirk. Jeez,
My mate Scott, who's a Falkirk fan, he's also messaged saying,
Aye.
for fuck's sake, so he's obviously not happy either.
That's it.
Do you know something? It's not even the fact it's Falkirk. It's just...
well,
It's a chance.
Ross County have just got
Just
Livingston.
get something different.
Hibs versus...
Oh, man.
I think the only bonus that I'm getting out of that is that it's an extra game that I'm back home for, and I get to go to Falkirk because I'm not getting to go this weekend. That's the only thing that I'm happy about. But
My only
at the end
bonus
of the day, I was hoping for a non-league team like a Musselburgh away or something.
it's the closest ground I could have gone to. Probably, well, maybe Stenhousemuir is the only one closer. Fuck. And that's going to be on the telly as well.
Rangers
Who's got
at
Fraser
home.
Brook?
Yes. Rangers at home.
Did they not play them quite recently? I feel like they got them a couple of years
I
ago.
maybe did. No, was that no Celtic?
It was-
Hearts away to
no.
Brecon.
No, they got Bucky last year.
Okay.
Don't know why we're
It was
cutting the
Bucky,
rest of
yeah.
this draw. We should be getting on
Oh,
to our
that's
Bibles
turgid.
now and getting away to editing this. Never has a podcast ended in such disgust after a 4-0 victory.
Falkirk away. We've booked Falkirk for
Have you?
hospitality for the away league game at the end of the season.
On the 19th.
See if they win the league when league when we're there. I'll go with Seek.
I'm back home for that weekend as well.
Anyway. Well, Falkirk all around. We'll be back at the end of the week for the league preview for the game against Falkirk. You can feel our general enthusiasm right now towards that cup draw. So thank you for taking the time to tune in this evening. And yeah, we will be back for that. And no doubt a game of should McStair, should Dargo to ease our woes as well. But thank you for listening and bye for now.
Bye, Bob.